Black and brown people are mainly targeted because of, oh, I perceive that they look old. I perceive that groups of them are causing crime more than other races. And then you have in Cleveland, Ohio, from 2011 to 2021, found that 93% of 187 civil penalties for curfew violations issued to Black children. And then you have the same in Dallas, Texas, from 2017 to 2018, 88% of tickets issued to Black and Latinx youth as well. Just showing how it's so many of us who are being targeted for it, even though there are kids throughout different races, throughout not just this county, but the whole country. And it's just sad that you have specific races targeted. Now, we're going to go into a little bit of the bill, and for that, I will introduce Ms. Beverly John.
Thank you. Carlos laid out the, I guess, the foundations of why we're here. But I actually want to add one other piece of information that I think we need to think about in terms of what prompted them to do this executive order and the curfew bill itself. In the news reports, what did they say? You saw large numbers of kids that were doing a senior skip day one time. Then you had large numbers of children at the National Harbor, like just swarmed there and were there at the harbor. So my question about this curfew is, what is this bill actually going to do to prevent that type of thing from happening? Commercial property owners having to apply for the right to have curfew zones is not going to stop kids who might decide, okay, we want to go in this park right here and we're going to have a little, day of whatever. That's not going to stop this solution. It's ineffective, and it's not going to stop the issue that they proposed when they submitted, the information to the news media. It's just not going to be effective in that. The law actually says, again, it allows the commercial property owners to submit applications to the police chief for him to be able to review and approve the curfew zones. It affects children as young as 16 years old, and it can go as early as 5 p.m. The application must have a letter of support from one of the 3 county council members representing the area of the proposed curfew. So they have to have some kind of sign off by the county council members. And there's no opportunity for any public input into this application process. Okay. What are the impacts on the families and the children? There will be fines, of course, that will gradually increase over the time for each time a child may be caught breaking the curfew. As you see here, there's a first time warning, then it goes to $50, $100, and following the 4th time, $250. They do have some exceptions in the legislation, which again to me are they're confusing. One of the exceptions, of course, if a child is leaving a religious event or their place of employment, however, the child could still be stopped and questioned by the police. One other thing in the legislation, it says that if the child has like a signed letter from their parent giving them permission to be out up to 12:30, but still you have to, again, have communication engagement with a policeman stopping you and asking you questions about where you are. So again, the increase of potential, aggression or whatever between a police engagement and a child, it just increases that. Right. And the discretion of the police officer is key as well. Some of us look a little younger than what we are, right? So imagine if you have like a young adult who is being stopped and questioned and they're not understanding, what is really going on here? Why are you asking these? It could cause some problems for them as well. So these types of things are things that we want to avoid at all costs. We do not want to have more opportunities for our children to be questioned and harassed by police. We don't want to have large groups of kids running around and maybe fighting or causing harm to commercial property, but this bill is not going to be the thing that's going to stop that. I'll take take your questions.
Those fines, they go towards the guardian, parent guardian.
Yes, the parent or the guardian has to pay those fines.
And I actually added that. Also, it can also go towards the business as well. So if you have a
Yes.
business that, if you have a business that allows a child 16 or younger to be at their establishment, but there's a curfew over that whole area, and the police find out that you're quote unquote knowingly allowing them to be there, the business can face the fines as well as the parent too. So it's really the county taking money from both ends as well.
Yeah, I think picture that slide before.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
so think about what this does. If you're working in a business establishment, you're more worried about like serving your customers and doing the normal operation of your business. As somebody working there, it's then up to you to try to look and see whether or not you can identify somebody that's 16 or younger, and then be in an uncomfortable position of asking them, how old are you? You gotta leave. So for a business, that's aggressive. That's hard to place that kind of burden on a business establishment. But again, they can face fines if they don't do this.
I have one piece of input. I think it's unfair to put that burden, especially on a business owner. Number one, if we're worried about crime in the community, a business owner 9 times out of 10 will be afraid, number one, to approach. And number two, who am I as a business owner to make you not come on my property? That's when I would have to get the law involved. So that's not a fair expectation.
It's not fair at all. And if you really want to go back to, who's carrying a burden for this legislation, let's just think about, police chief has stated several times in different press conferences that they are understaffed, they're looking for people to work, but now you have me and my staff actually reviewing applications and approving, applications for somebody to have a commercial curfew, and then I have to also enforce it as well. So that's a little burdensome as well to them, I would think, right?
And then you even look back on what happened when the National Harbor curfew went into effect. You had those video images of all the police extra officers that they put at the harbor. So it's like, so are we taking resources that could be used to dealing with other issues and put it towards just harassing kids or harassing whoever they think could look like a kid?
Are you taking questions now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
I
so-
started it, so yeah, let's go
Okay,
ahead.
it's okay. So what I couldn't understand is, say a McDonald's wants to put the curfew on, do they put a sign in their place? And so if there's McDonald's here and like a block away is Burger King, which they're always closed, the Burger King could be okay and the McDonald's wouldn't?
Well, for the curfews, it goes by the commercial property. So if you have it where the Burger King is on one side of the street and the McDonald's is on the other, and the person who owns those the actual property that they're on are 2 different people because they're split, yes, you could have it where this area has a curfew zone and this area that's owned by another person has no curfew zone.
Mhm.
So when you talk about the commercial zone, I don't understand. I thought you said that the commercial, is it the owner of the property?
It's the person who owns that commercial property.
Not the actual business person,
Oh,
not the
okay.
people that work in the McDonald's, it's the actual person who owns the property.
So the business will be fine, not the owner, not the property owner.
Right.
The business gets that
The
fine.
business gets.
Because they look at it as you're allowing them to be there.
So the small business will be
Fine.
impacted, right?
Impacted, correct.
Negatively.
Yeah. And Sarah, you asked a question about, to me, reading that legislation, it's kind of unclear as to what's going to constitute this zone.
Right.
Like, who's defining the zone, the business zone? The commercial owner, the property owner, the police? Like, who is defining this zone? Because in the legislation, it also says, whatever this commercial property can apply for this, and it could include residential areas. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's way too much. If I live next to the McDonald's or right across from the McDonald's and it's a zone, you mean tell me my child cannot be outside after 5 o'clock when they live there? That it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's just burdensome all the way around.
Has anybody reached out to Councilmember Barrows to get clarification on the zoning question,
Mhm.
and has he,
He hasn't responded. We tried to.
And we just haven't heard anything back. And then, okay, the babysitting fee as well?
Oh,
'Cause
yeah,
that also
so,
has a business too.
Well, the other thing is that if after an hour or so, because you spoke, like if you're caught as a child, your parents are notified that you have been, violating this curfew, and they need to come and pick you up within an hour. If they miss that hour, then you as a parent are getting charged fees, additional fees for actually basically for somebody in the agency babysitting your child until you can get there.
Yeah, and this fee is conducted of that employee's hourly wage and their benefits as well. Even though our tax money as county residents already pay for this as well. So then this is honestly what it looks like in a lot of instances. It's a money grab for the county to say, okay, how can we criminalize children enough to get as much money as we can? And then another thing is that all this money that they're collecting too, one thing that wasn't established is that any of this money going to any resources for kids at all, going to actually putting it back into the community. It's seen as just, okay, just give us the money, and then
We don't know what happens
Exactly.
after that.
go ahead, sir.
What are the benefits? You mean you have to pay for your health benefits? I mean, what are the benefits? I mean, if you're an employee in the county, right? You pay Maryland taxes, you pay Prince George's County taxes, you have health insurance, and you have to pay Social Security, you have to pay Medicare. What are these extra fees, and
Yeah.
what are they?
No, you're exactly right.
Good question.
Exactly right. And that wasn't even outlined in the bill, like, oh, these specific benefits you're paying for. It's just hourly wage plus benefits. And it's,
And you're paying for it.
And these funds are public, right, where how it's gonna be allocated, it's gonna be, the public will have access to this, to say, hey, these new fees went here and here and here. The public will have access to that.
I got that.
I was about to say, I haven't heard that outline, or seen that outline in the bill that, oh, the money that comes from it, the public will know where it goes and things like that exactly. But yeah.
That's one of
Yeah,
those,
that's
that's
one
one
of
of those details that's not really clearly defined in the legislation, so we don't know, but understanding, the transparency level that we've been getting for other issues, I doubt very seriously if they're gonna give us that information.
Very zero transparency.
I think a lot of times you don't know because the citizens don't have an input. There's no
Right.
public hearing.
Right.
So that's a big problem.
Right. But that's gonna bring up a point that I wanna make later on about, as we talk about the solutions, solutions cost money, right?
Right.
But and so what the pushback is gonna be when we start talking about solutions is, well, where's the money coming from? It can come from a lot of different places, so we need to work on, kind of like a budget campaign where we're identifying places where you need to be able to take this money and put it over here for the resources that you need to be able to invest in your children.
I would posit that we don't even do that. Because the county decides where their money is, they know where their pots are, they know where their stashes are. And we just say, you come up with the money that we need. We are not going to tell you where the money's gonna come from. When there's a specific pet project, like FedEx Field, well, yeah, then the money comes out, right? So they will have the money for their pet project.
You're right.
So I don't think we have to do their job. We have to pressure them to do the correct
To do the right
job
thing with the money.
for the
That's a
residents,
good proposal. So we'll see how it goes.
Look at Bowser with all that money for the Capitol Center or whatever, when the Wizards are playing, right?
So yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about how curfews produce more harm than good to the community overall. What you have is increased unnecessary interaction. So even though the legislation says, oh well, there are exceptions for if it's your a religious event, or if you're coming to and from work, or if your parent signs a letter. The thing is, you still have to have that interaction with the police officer to even know that you're coming home from work or you're coming from a religious activity, X, Y, and Z. And the thing is, a lot of times you're coming from work, you may not have any proof, or it's up to that officer to believe that you're coming from work. I could have on a McDonald's shirt, I could have just bought that from Amazon a few days ago, and I'm just wearing it. So you have more encounters with police and government entities, risk of harmful incidents due to mass incarceration, also disproportionate impact, which we talked about a little bit before, about how Black and brown children are most disproportionately affected by things like this. You also have the bias in law enforcement. Black boys often being viewed as less innocent and more culpable than white boys, and then also law enforcement internalizes these biases, where when they're going out walking around and saying, oh, someone's 16 here and someone's 16 there, who are they more likely to target and stop? And then you also have discretionary enforcement. Curfew enforcement is highly discretionary and dependent on reasonable suspicion. You could have one officer who's like, okay, I can see a group of white kids walking, I'm not gonna do that. Stop or anything. I see a group of Black kids walking or a group of brown kids walking, I'm gonna say something today, because today is the right day for them.
Sure.
So we have different multiple issues when it comes to that.
And let me just add one thing about the enforcement. You may or may not know, we've had curfews on the book since 79, 80, right? Has there really been any enforcement of that you know, it only comes up when there's something that has caused fear within the community and they need to address it. So their answer is gonna be, we're gonna do a curfew. Not that the curfew is gonna be effective at all, but we want people to think we're doing something about these issues. So we're going to do the curfew. So it's always been discretionary. It's always been on the books. So this is, this particular piece of legislation is adding more to it than what the original, I believe, legislation was, but it's always been discretionary.
And then we go to how the fines and fees are going to worsen people's economic instability. You have children in poverty who are more likely to engage in delinquent behavior due to financial hardships and community challenges. The term that we use and been hearing a lot is crimes of poverty. You're going to have people who decide, or families who are going to have to decide, do I pay this $250 fine plus babysitting fees, or do I pay rent, or do I get food for my family, or am I able to pay the water bill? So you're gonna this could possibly put people in situations where I have to go pay these fines, and then I need to do some other criminal activity just so I can keep up with my bills and my family to keep us secure. You also have, again, how this disproportionately affects black and brown families, and then you also have consequences of the inability to pay. Immediate and long-term financial consequences, also reduces family income and creates economic instability, long-term debt, and also, like we said earlier, increases the crime of poverty as well. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, also it is shown that financial penalties are not effective at curbing unwanted behavior too. And with that, well, we've been doing questions, but any other questions on this part?
So, I've taken it, they're gonna have some kind of database to track what warning you on, because like, how will they know a kid is on their third warning or not?
Yes. I believe it will go by, once they stop, they record that, oh, we made this encounter with this child, and
So
then
there's just gonna be a database of children that.
They're gonna
Or just
track.
track.
They're gonna be tracking and monitoring in that way.
There you go. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beverly, and we're gonna go on to our next speaker, Ms. Robin Salter with the Office of Public Defender for Prince George's County.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Salter. I'm the Regional Director of Youth Defense for the Maryland Office of Public Defender. And I was formerly a defender at the Prince George's County office, but now I control an entire region. And we'll be working on statewide legislative policy regarding children. So this curfew imposition or law is very complicated, very challenging. From the position of the Office of Public Defender, we've seen these curfews imposed multiple times over right here in Prince George's County and our annexed jurisdictions, Baltimore City. They're always imposed in Black and brown communities. Always. Over and over and over again. We know they don't work. We know they don't protect children. We know statistics tells us to always make sure that children have the least interactions with police anytime. So now we're putting children in a position to have more contact with police. Every agency who looks at child welfare and child criminology knows that it's not working. It raises the incidence of occurrences where children can be victimized, hurt, or placed into the delinquency system. A curfew violation should not place you in the direct perils of the delinquency system. Then we have a situation here now where we're talking about it's the summertime. Do we know if children are living in healthy homes? Do we know if children have resources at home? We are not a jurisdiction that guarantees every child a summer job. We're not a jurisdiction that guarantees every child a space in a free camp. A lot of times, we're not even a jurisdiction where there's a recreation center near your home that could provide a free meal or a place for you to gather with your friends. We know children who are in unhealthy and unsafe situations are much safer with their peers. We have children who don't have legal guardians such as parents or family members. They're wards of the state. Wherever they're placed might have a curfew for them to come back at a certain time, and they might not have the resources to be everywhere with their child. So here we are, placing lawful restrictions on what seems to be unconstitutional practices against Black and brown children, because that's what we targeted here. Our courts will have to deal with whatever else comes out of this interaction with police. Now, most of us here know there's also a law currently called the Child Interrogation Protection Act, which says the children who are accused of an offense are not supposed to speak to police about that offense, and more so, the police are supposed to contact a lawyer for that child, not a parent, a lawyer, mainly the Office of Public Defender, for that child if they suspect that child is involved in a crime and they want to ask that child questions, right? So, but here, the curfew violation law is not a delinquency rule. It's not accusing the child of being part of the criminal act. It's a civil penalty for the parent. So you have children who will be then, by law, forced to provide information to the police about something, because we know that the only thing you have to give the police is your name, your parents' contact information. But now they're demanding who you are, where you're coming from, where you're going. Did you make a pit stop on the way to where you're supposed to be going? Did your parent give you a letter to go there? Why are you sitting here with all these people?
Can you repeat that? It's a civil penalty.
It's a civil penalty for parents and not a delinquency or criminal penalty for children. But it still places children as being the square root of where the information is obtained from.
So that means they can get around the interrogation law.
I'm sure there's probably going to be lots of litigation coming out of this. We look forward to seeing those interactions. Well, I'm not going to say we look forward, but I guess if a child is charged with a delinquency occurrence, or we know here in the state of Maryland, you can charge a child 16 or older as an adult. You won't know what the reason was for stopping that child 17 or younger until you, especially if they're in court, see the body camera footage, if there is body camera footage. But again, this places all of our children and young adults and people who are visiting the great Prince George's County squarely in the position to be stopped and questioned by the police about their whereabouts. Question.
I have a question. Recently I supported a young man and his family, a juvenile, 13 years old, that was falsely charged from an incident that happened in the harbor. And so that was my first time actually supporting a juvenile family. So my question, and what shocked me, was that just because the police wrote robbery on his statement of charge, that automatically escalated his case to a felony. And so that's automatically pushing him forward. Do you have any insight to offer on that?
So one is going to be our office policy to never discuss any specific child. Children are protected, and so that specific incident is too much to discuss about any child in particular. However, we will say there is a screening process for both the Department of Juvenile Services and a screening process for the state's attorney's office. Both are supposed to, well, I should say the state's attorney's office, in their screening, they generally or should, or there's an opportunity, however their policy is written, to speak to the officer, decide, even though a petition is written up, what they're actually going to go forth and charge with, and then they move forward that way. So that's within the office of the state's attorney, deciding what they actually petition and how it comes out. And that's for any and all children. I mean, that's for any crime that occurs in any jurisdiction. The state's attorney's office decides what they charge them.
So they could charge this 13-year-old that has a felony charge as an adult at 13?
No, so the law is written specifically for children 16 and older, and there are certain classifications of crime for which you could charge a child that's at least 14, but then you're talking about murders and things like that.
So how does it go if a child already has like an offense or is on probation and then they violate the curfew law?
So interestingly enough, as of now, the curfew violation is just an imposition for parents. There's nothing written in there that says a child will face penalties X, Y, and Z. I don't know any position that the Department of Juvenile Services would have on that for children who are being monitored, let's just say. Pre-trial, we don't call it trial when we talk about children, we say pre-marriage. Or if someone is actively on quote-unquote probation. I mean, again, those children who are monitored have a curfew from the Department of Juvenile Services, right? It could be an 8 o'clock curfew, it could be a 9 o'clock curfew, it could be a 10 o'clock curfew. It just depends on that child's needs, what they have going on. We expect for children to be active and to be in safe places. It's the summertime now. Children are in sports camp. You know, if your kid is in swim camp, baseball camp, football camp, because schools will start having the practices as we get later into the summer. And all of us know teenagers, as soon as they finish whatever they're doing, they want to eat. So they want to leave from where they're going to go get food, and then they're going to go into the house and collect. Depending on if it's a commercial zone or not, and depending on the way this is written, it says they're supposed to go to and from a route with no pit stops. But they're hungry.
Were there signs?
I can't speak to that, but I'm assuming there is going to be something posted. Because today I've seen the postings at the National Harbor that says Youth Curfew Enforcement Zone. But again, we don't know where these zones could potentially end up. Again, the legislation said that business owners were to petition and have support. We don't. I know there's a list of things, but we don't know the parameters for when the enforcement mechanism will say yes, we're going to give you a sign, or no. We don't know the rules around whether other businesses next to you would want that or not, because that's not clear. That's not, from what I read, that's not clear. And I also saw that it included public spaces, including playgrounds, basketball courts, malls, the curb. We want kids in public spaces. We want kids at basketball courts. We want kids in picnic areas. We want kids in grassy areas. We want kids to be kids in this community. We want parents to feel like they're safe places for their kids to go in the community. This isn't a bill for some. This is a bill for all.
These are kids who are considered like by themselves. So, for example, like a family celebrating a birthday at a restaurant. Like, would they be exempt, or they focus on
Kids who,
teenagers who are by themselves?
so from the reading of this legislation, children who are being accompanied by a parent or a person who a parent has given permission to is exempt from this. So you need to be with an adult or someone 16 or older. That's what I've read into this bill. However, if you have children, you know that you could be there. You trust your child to go somewhere else. If you're in a restaurant, your kid wants to go to the restroom in the restaurant, you might say, or if you're in a food court in the mall or wherever, go ahead. Let's just take National Harbor. You have the Tanger Shopping Center there, right? On one side. Let's assume that we're here. Let's just say you're enjoying food and your child wants to go to the restroom that's over and in the building there. Will they be stopped? We don't know. If they appear not to be supervised, we don't know. We only can go by the plain text of what is in the bill here. And again, from our perspective as an Office of Public Defender, it's definitely some constitutional challenges that we can foresee, as well as it is applied. It looks to be a race-based policy.
So it's basically show me a safe room.
You know, I don't know if I would go exactly, but there are, based on what we know.
With your parent, show me permission that you're either working, or that may just.
Exactly. again, that's why we say race-based policy. History has told us a story about how things are applied, and history will make this very analogous to the Jim Crow era.
So you made the point that that this bill is mostly for parents. Is that correct?
Yes, the penalties for the bill are specifically for parents and legal guardians.
So when also Brooks and Chief Aziz gave their press conference, one of the slogans that also Brooks kept repeating is like, "Where is the parents?" Right? Where are the parents? And so my question to you is that, do you think that that is presumptive on her end to ask questions like, where are the parents? Because in my mind, that assumes that the parents are nowhere, and that's why these kids are acting. Right? So how do you understand?
I don't, and I won't speak for them into what their assumptions are. I'll just say that as an adult, you take from it what you surmise from it, right? And you watch and you see. I think there could very well be an assumption there that parents are not accountable for their children's actions, but we don't know what actions are you speaking of, because we want our teenagers to be independent and autonomous, right? We want them to be children who look for jobs at commercial establishments. We want them to get the work permit. We want them to see business in a healthy way. We want them to spend their money from their summer jobs or their babysitting gigs or whatever opportunities they have to earn money at commercial establishments. We don't want them to be profiled. We've seen this too many times, and now we're just creating more ways to have children stop. Children who presumptively are not doing anything to garner police attention. There's no reasonable articulable suspicion, except for you look of a certain age, and because of this curfew zone, you should not be.
And I would even say going into that is how you have some parents who are working two jobs trying to provide for their families. Are they necessarily going to be able to leave PC or wherever they work at in an hour, go get their child, come back? And you have some kids who may not be safe at their home environment, so they need a safe place outside of home to go to as well. So I would say them saying, "Oh, this is just a problem with parents need to accept accountability for the child," is multiple reasons why a parent may not physically be able to be there with their child, or that the child may be safer in other areas as well.
I guess what I would love to see during these times is more messaging about where children can go. Right? We know children are deeply enthralled in the social media culture, and they like, doing their TikToks or their dances or their whatever they have and posting it. Where is a safe place for them to go? If they can't be exactly here at this time, is there a place close to that where children should gather? Are there going to be more Friday night outs for teens? Are there going to be more busing services for Friday night for other issues? Is there going to be a drive-in, outdoor movie for teens where they can gather? We hear no solutions that make it places for young people to be safe with their friends, and actually be kids in our communities. We don't hear any of that. We drive past a lot of the recreation centers or the parks. Park closes at dark, or there's no basketball equipment, or you need X to enter this facility, or you lost your card, you can't come in. We don't want to make problems where children can't go gather safely. We want places that's going to promote children to come, to gather safely, to have fun, to enjoy all the economic development coming to the county, and still get back home safe.
So I have a follow-up question like this gentleman asked about the parents. So as Carlos pointed out, some parents may not be able to leave work. Or what if they're not able to get their parent or someone to come pick them up? Would then social services have to then go and check out that house because the parent was not responsible for their child, which would start another whole can of worms, which I know from personal experience could be a very, very devastating,
Understood, yeah.
right.
I mean, here's a very real thing as well. What if you're just a child that can't remember your parents' phone number? All of us have all these numbers in our cell phone. I can't tell you everyone's number. Or, what if your cell phone is dead and you can't? Or, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. What if you don't even own a cell phone? What if your parent doesn't? We presume a lot of things when we say there is someone to contact, right? And you presume a lot of things in this suburban area that people actually have transportation to get there. I think the bill also presumes some of the things I've seen, and it was like parents don't get the benefit of saying you don't know where your child is. Well, I think for most people who have children, let's just say if your child is an athlete, you assume your child is coming from the field or whatever to home, but you don't know that they're stopping at the 7-Eleven to grab a Gatorade. You don't have the defense now of saying, I don't know that. So there's a lot of context in here that we have to pull out and we have to paint and we have to establish in terms of what is meant by this. We know children are being targeted, but what is the overall goal? And it would seem that the overall goal is target children from being in places that are thriving business-wise, right? Or not. Like, most businesses in our communities are not owned by us. I mean, this is a predominantly Black county, but most businesses here are not owned by us. They're owned by corporations, or they're owned by other, let's say major corporations at this point. Look at the National Harbor. It's a beautiful property. It's a beautiful property with lots of opportunities to enjoy dining. It's a resort property there. There's other things there. What else could we bring there to allow kids to participate in the property in a healthy way? Is there a movie theater there? Is there a skating rink there? Is there something they're doing they're going to promote times or stuff? Because guess what? If we want kids there, then we want families there as well, right? So what are we doing to promote the families that live here to be able to come to the harbor and help promote good common business or common practices amongst the community? Because if you live here, you're probably going to live here for years. And I don't think anybody who's going to live here for years is going to say, as a child, I was excluded from that property. But now that I'm working and I can buy a house here and I have all this money, I actually want to go and buy up all the memories I didn't have as a kid. That's just not the resort that we want, right?
Are the metro stops exempt? Because, for example, kids come from a high school game, or actually the players, they get off. It's always in the late evenings when they're done with the game. The bus stops running, obviously. There's no school bus for the most part. The child goes home, but some children take the bus stop. What if that bus stop is actually on that property that has that zone? So it's almost like a catch-22.
Yeah, there's again, they wrote some exemptions in, but how those exemptions are individually applied to children who have very individual situations, we don't know. And that's probably more important as to why there should be public hearing about these applications and what they mean and who they're meant for. Because at this juncture, the way it's written, it just doesn't appear you will ever know that a business applied until you see a sign. Right. Yes.
I think my concern as well is, are we finding parents that already have no resources in cash and crossing? I mean, when you're talking about a fine that's starting off at $100, but this may be a parent of a family of 4 or 5 kids, and it goes up to $250. You may be contacting me, but I may not have the money. How is that worked out? Will my child be held? Would I be, held in contempt? Because at that point, I don't have the resources to pay that fine.
Again, that's going to be more questions for the administration and how they choose to deal with this. I don't have the answer for that. We just know.
After that $250 fine, what's next? Is that on that part?
Oh, then they continue with $250 each time. So yeah, so
There's no cap?
you mean like cap, like once you hit so many fines? Then
Yeah,
you
like
get
a
a fine.
parking
No,
ticket.
it's after your fourth time. Each time after that is $250.
That's per child.
There you go.
Yes,
JR.
so
Per child.
it could
That's
be-
not one family.
So imagine if you have imagine if you have 4 kids and they're all out at the same time, and that's one parent, 250, 250, 250, 250, and then we keep doing that each time that the hour passes. Yeah, that's $400.
The second time that you're
Right.
paying, they have been put out, you know.
For some people, that could be rent.
And if you don't pay that, is there a fee? Or like, is there, you have 30 days to pay this, 15 days to pay this, how does that work?
That's a good question.
That's
How
the
do they
part I
attach
don't-
that to the
That part I don't believe in the bill.
Are they applying like parking laws, like, you get a parking stick, like how are they applying the fees and penalties?
I believe that's actually a great question. I believe in the bill, there was nothing explicitly that laid out that said, if you can't pay, here's what happens, or you have X amount of time to pay the fine. Nothing was laid out of that.
Not only that, there also should be a maybe a pilot program to support those who can't afford to pay that. Because it's not like, money grows on trees and stuff.
Exactly. And you also get the problem too of if you have, let's say, a child who maybe they went out with their friends and it's 4 o'clock, it's starting to get to 5 o'clock and the curfew set. What if I just don't have the transportation to go home? Or I was at work and I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up. She can't leave work until 6. I technically can't be anywhere until 6 o'clock, but I have nowhere to go. So I have no transportation to get home, get to a designated safe area if there was one or anything.
Or traffic is backed up on 495.
Exactly.
That's my life.
That's what we all experience that daily.
This is one of those perfect examples of also Brooks being so quick to be reactive and not proactive. Like instantly gone in the news, gone on TV and said, this is what we're gonna do to please those people who don't like
Stakeholders.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't even say to please them because when you talk to a lot of them about the specifics of the bill, like the fines, the babysitting fees, and all that, then they start saying, "Wait, what? That's a lot of money." And then you start telling them, "Oh, well, the curfew can start as early as 5 p.m." Wait, well, that's a little early. So the intentionality of the media to kind of frame it as, "Oh, just curfew, just we're gonna give that blanket statement, but not talk about the specifics." So when we get into the specifics, a lot of people start saying, "Oh, I don't really like that. That's a little too restrictive on families."
Well, will this deter some commercial business from hiring teenagers?
Exactly.
Because I have a job, that's why I'm here, that will start working this summer. Will that deter a lot of business from wanting to hire teenagers, not knowing what other businesses in their community will have this curfew?
Yeah. And you have parents maybe scared of, oh my gosh, what if a curfew does get set up and now the store owner has to harass my child to say get out, and then police get involved, and then it's all nice as a majority black county until we have lawmakers in pushing more police into the communities to have a negative reaction policy as well. Awesome.
So we're gonna talk about solutions.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robin. And I'm gonna bring actually back up Beverly to talk about a scorecard that actually some members of the coalition put together to really talk about how our the First Georgia County has been doing when it comes to police accountability.
Sorry.
Okay, so you guys have a handout that has our scorecard, and just give you a little bit of background on what this scorecard really is about. Myself, Sarah's been involved in this, and there's other partners, colleagues that we have been working with. We came up with a project last year where, as the Prince George's County Coalition for Police Accountability, we wanted to look at the record, the voting record, just the activity of our county council, the state's attorney, the county exec, and I believe the full report also has a little bit of narrative on the chairman of the school board, or I forget what his title is, but the school board person who's running that. So this particular scorecard gives some grades, preliminary grades, because we're still doing a little bit more detailed research into it. And actually, as this curfew bill has come into play, we've taken that into consideration as well. We did the initial research on the voting records as of 2020. 2020 to 2023 was our initial time period, but of course, because of some of the stuff with the curfew, we've added some more things. And what I think disappointed me the most, because what happened in 2020? 2020 was what George Floyd, the whole world was focused on police accountability and trying to figure out, ways to be able to reform and prevent, police from killing Black people in the streets, right? So from 2020 to 2023, Prince George's County only had two, I would say, significant police reform type bills, and one of them was actually mandated by the state bill, the Maryland Police Accountability Act, which was done in 2021. We started implementing it, I believe, in 22, right? So we really only had those two bills, and now we're adding on, the activity that they in the discussion around the curfew bill as well. So this grading sheet really just talks about their activity from that time period and on those two bills. And then we added some narrative, some personal narrative around some of our engagement with them, and just commentary on what we experienced when we tried to reach out to them for certain things. We looked at anything they may have had, like in the news, social media, whatever, that kind of would give us an idea of where they stood with police accountability in general. And more relevant to this discussion right here is, again, the curfew bill. And unfortunately, it passed. There was one council member, Crystal Oriata. She was the only one that voted no on the bill. Everyone else voted yes. And I don't know if you didn't get a chance. Yeah, we were trying to get a sound clip of her response as to why she said no and why she voted no. It was spot on. It was very, very, it was just like, we can't continue to present opportunities where it's increasing our children's interaction with the police. This is not what we're here to do. So if you get a chance, the council meeting, it is videoed, and it was held on, what date was it? June the 4th. So if you go to the county council's website and look under, there's a section for calendar and agendas, and it has all the different meetings. So if you look for the June 4th meeting, and it was I believe the council, committee as a whole, I believe was the body that had the hearing. June 4th. Look at that particular video, and it's indexed, so you can go right to the bill that we're talking about, the curfew bill. And I think it would be very good and kind of insightful for you to hear the discussion on why some of them voted for yes, and certainly why she voted her no vote. It summed it up very nicely. The scorecard, and just so you know, the scorecard is like a summary of our full report, and we'll be making the full report available as soon as we kind of finalize everything. And I think, you would find that very interesting as a way of kind of looking at, okay, who are we really voting for? Like, what is their thought processes in some of, the areas around police reform? Not taking anything away from any of the other issues that we have in the county, but we have some work to do with police accountability. I'll say that much.
Yes, have you had any experience with the county council members telling you one thing in person to your face and then voting just the opposite way?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Not recently, because we really hadn't been in any of the hearings. I know, Sarah, you were at the hearing for the curfew, right? But what you're talking about, Ms. Dot, was there was several hearings for the police accountability legislation that we had to implement within the county. And we had several hearings, and Ms. Dot, Dawn, Sarah, we were all in these different hearings where, we spoke and shared, personal stories as to why we believe police accountability is so important. You're directly impacted. You lost your son, 30 years ago now?
Yes.
By being shot by a police officer. Still looking for justice around that. And, during those hearings, everyone was, I walked with, Martin Luther King, and I did this, I'm down. Basically trying to get some kind of credit about it. But then when it came around time to vote, they didn't stand up for what they really were talking about. So their street cred for me, 0. And again, really why this is even more important, we kept a running list of a name, and it was about 98, 99 names on this list of people, residents, our loved ones in Prince George's County who lost their lives to police officers from when was Archie?
1993.
Yeah, from 93 all the way up to 2020, because I think 2020, I believe, Nikki's cousin William Green was one of the last ones, and he was shot and killed in 20. He was one of the last ones we had on our list. Well, I did some research. I went back to the database. And if you're wondering, the Washington Post has this database where they kind of collect all of the instances of where police have people were killed by police shootings. There's all other types of things, so it's probably a lot more out there, but that's what we used. And I went to the database to find out that unfortunately, since 2020, there have actually been 5-6 more people shot and killed by police officers in Prince George's County. And I'm just going to ask, show of hands, who has heard anything about any of that in the news? One was just as recently as February or March of this year. Didn't hear a thing about it, did we? Young man was in his apartment. Someone had called about a potential breaking into his apartment, and still not clear. That one made the media. That's the only one I saw. It was very short though, wasn't it? It wasn't a big deal about it.
Ran for 2 days.
Yeah. That one was one, and I think that was February or March, I believe. But for the most part, nobody knew anything about these other people. So police accountability is still an issue here. We need to keep an eye on it. Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing.
Were you trying to slow down? But
No, I was just trying to go to the next one, and I think I'll turn it.
just like oh yeah.
Oops, sorry. Oops.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Beverly.
Awesome. Great you all. Now we're gonna go to our next speaker, Dawn Dalton, who's also with the coalition as well.
So, everybody. So, of course, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dawn Dalton. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Just Us Initiative, which is an organization, a nonprofit organization that was formed out of the pain of my son being directly impacted and going through the criminal justice system with 22 false charges over a 4.5-year period. So, coming out of that situation, my family and I chose to work in social justice to make sure that other families don't have to endure the trauma of what we did endure. With that being said, since then I've worked with Beverly, Ms. Dye, the ACLU, a lot of others in dealing with police accountability, going to court to support families that are either falsely charged or overcharged. And with this issue right here, it all goes hand in hand. So for me, I'm about solutions because I'm just tired of fighting and going rah-rah and, going up in front of legislators and not having anything to offer. We're talking about what's happening, but we're not really offering anything. So when it comes to solutions, the curfew is ridiculous. If you're talking about anybody being told that they can't be outside after 5 o'clock, it's the summertime. What time is it now? It is after 6:30 and it's sunny. So it makes no sense for any of us to believe that being outside after 5 o'clock should be an offense, right? It should not be. With that being said, I have done a lot of work with Chief Aziz and dealing with accountability on Prince George's County Police Department, and we've been very successful. Our organization hosts listening sessions where we bring in directly impacted families. We also bring in youth, football coaches, you name it, we do it. And what we do is we have a setup similar to this, but it's larger. And we have the police, and the police chief and his team have to engage with our community members as community members, right? So they can't stand up on the stage and talk at us. They have to hear what we have to say, what you have to say. And it's been extremely powerful and extremely successful. And so the fines, ridiculous. Instead of us talking about finding families, what we need to be doing is we need to be providing resources. A lot of parents are single parents. The young lady over here just spoke about that. If you're a single parent and you're working or not working, you don't have money to pay fines, right? And just because you don't happen to know that your child, we just had an example of that, left the football field and they stopped at Royal Farms to get some chicken and fries, you should not be held accountable for that like you committed a crime, because you absolutely did not. So let me get to my notes. I apologize. Okay, so we need lawmakers partnering with us. They need to be providing resources to us to wrap around our youth and our families to make sure that they have everything that they need to be successful and to be made whole. We need to have wraparound services for families, single parents navigating low-paying jobs, high food costs, food deserts, poor quality, not decent recreation facilities and stuff like that. We need to be able to have them fund creating better playgrounds, better facilities for our kids to be able to feel safe. We need to provide them with resources as in opportunities to share their experiences, right? And make sure that they feel safe. Safe space is my pet peeve. Again, like I said, we need to fund organizations that provide mentorship. Again, increased funding for playgrounds, recreational areas need to be updated. We need to fully fund free lunch in Prince George's County. Increase funding to Maryland Park and Planning. And the bottom, that's all there.
It goes with the slide.
Yeah, the bottom line is that if we make families feel that we care, if we make our children feel that we care, if we engage with them and have conversations, you will be so surprised at the information that you will receive. And an example that I can use, Beverly's been present. When we have our listening sessions, we've actually had young Black males that have said, none of them like the police, right? And so we bring them into this environment, right? And so we have the police engage with them in a respectful manner, like community members. Every single one of them, am I lying, walks out with a whole new perspective, a respectful perspective. And so that's the goal. When we've had issues in the community, I've dealt with youth that have been arrested. I've contacted the chief, had a conversation with him. I need you to check into this. I'm not asking him to do anything that is unethical or illegal, but I need you to check on this situation because I think there's something wrong here. Before we criminalize our kids, we need to investigate the situation. And as the public defender's office knows, once you get a child in the system, once you get anybody in the system, it is a long haul. It's not something that's here today, gone tomorrow, and you get your life back. No, lives are forever changed. I am a directly impacted mother who can state that fact. So for me, I'm saying to the world and to the county council, put solutions on the table. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't put all your money on criminalizing our kids and putting our children in the criminal justice system. Put your money in wrapping them with services that will create a better lifestyle for them, that will support their parents, and hey, that's it. It's really not that complicated. Do right.
I think I'll add this to that.
Okay.
I think there's an assumption that the only kids that are potentially hanging in areas, unwanted areas, are kids that are less fortunate than others. All kids hang out at the same way.
They do.
There's no such thing as your friends are your friends are your friends. Kids from who live in $750,000 billion cars, in their own cars, drive around and might hang out at the mall with their friends. All kids want to hang out with their friends and they want to be safe. So the implication that only children from low-income families that don't really care about where you are the ones that are responsible for mischief. That is a falsity, and that is
Very
definitely a falsity in a county where we have dubbed ourselves being the most close. So it's our kids, all of our kids are being affected.
And hold on, let's go deeper. And when you affect my child, you affect me too. So you're not just affecting my child, you're affecting me, and then you're affecting my family, and that rolls over into the community as a whole. So I think that's something that we all need to be cognizant of. And like I said before, our county council members, let's put the money on the organizations that are really out here doing the work. Let's make sure that our kids have the mental health support that they need, that their mothers, I go to events where I talk to, single moms that are doing the best that they can, trying to keep their kids in Little League football, trying to do basketball, trying to put their kids in all these different, things, to keep them activities, to keep them occupied. It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody, but it's certainly not easy for somebody if they're trying to do it by themselves. So instead of criminalizing them, let's do what we can to help them. And again, just throwing fines on people, what is that really solving? Like, it's not really going to do much. So for me, I'm just saying, the solution to me is to work together, put the funds where the funds should go to support our children, and instead of criminalizing them, let's treat them like what they really are, children. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And I don't know if anyone else had any questions for Dawn as well. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Dawn.
I have a statement, not a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I understand that your son didn't die, but I do understand the trauma that was caused, and I'm sure that's gonna last him a lifetime. And I remember another mother whose son got involved with the police, and she says he is really traumatized all the time, and she worries about him constantly. I worry about my son, but I know he's safe, but you still have a living son who's going through a lot.
And for the record, again, and I appreciate that, Di. I love you, Di. I do appreciate that because most people don't look at us. The mother that had to live through the experience for 4.5 years, it doesn't stop after the 4.5 years. The trauma is forever. And so for me, that's why I do the work, and that's why I'm passionate about the work, and that's why sometimes people say I'm a little too harsh with it. I really don't care because you're not living in my skin, and I know what I would do, and my goal is to make it so. And Chief Aziz will tell you this, when I sat across the table from him, I said my goal is to make it so that our children are not in the back of your car. That's
If you don't speak out, nobody else
and
speaks
that's a
out.
fact. That's a fact.
Awesome. I love it. And also point out a few little or a few more solutions that's what the coalition came up with about allowing businesses to work with trusted youth mentorship organizations to register as a designated safe space for kids to hang out during the curfew hours. So one thing is, yes, we can have curfew set up here and there. It's good that if you have a business within a curfew area, outside of curfew area, it says, you know what, I have a playground, I have like a hangout spot attached to my restaurant or whatever. Being able to work with some of these actual mentorship programs to say, hey, this is a safe space to where if you don't feel safe at home, you don't feel safe going to and from wherever, this is some place that you can come to. As well as increasing funding so playgrounds and other recreational services are up to date. Children have free transportation to these areas, and also that the designated safe spaces during the curfew hours, and also with people knowing that yes, there needs to be some kind of supervision of these areas as well. Instead of just always assuming, oh, let's get police to supervise the area. Having some social workers, having these youth mentorship organizations who actually know how to go into community and be in community with younger people, rather than saying, oh, I'm just here just to police you for the moment, and then after that, I'm gone. So we kind of went through the questions, but any other questions for any of our speakers at all?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
So, you know that also Brooks is running for Senate.
Yes.
And so she often talks about how, and I've heard other officials talk about this too, how they have well, specifically her, how she has built all these things for youth in the community. I'm just wondering, like, how do you all respond to that, or how do you all think about that? Because the solutions that you offer seem to suggest that something is happening, but maybe not enough. So just trying to.
Can you tell me what's happening?
She doesn't do anything.
Doesn't
Okay.
answer, give them a minute. I'm sorry. No, you're fine. No, I'm sorry.
I mean, there are some playgrounds.
It's in the basketball
issue.
Right. Even in our community, the basketball that hasn't been like us since the pandemic, but the basketball that like one with the kid suits, not just the little brown.
You hit it on the head when you said the county may have a couple of programs, but they're definitely not enough. I've actually even overheard that there's some programs that Maryland National Park and Planning has at their community centers. There's one, I think it's called Extreme Teens or something. I believe, I'm trying to find this clip, but I believe she actually tried to take credit for that by saying this is something that the county is doing when it's not the county, it's park and planning. And what's really messed up about that is the fact that they take and decrease the park and planning budget quite frequently. So you're taking credit for something that one, you're actually dismantling,
Is there also, like, I know that she did go to the state legislature to advocate for the parks and planning to have its own budget, to control its own budget. Because the state controls it now, but I think she went to the legislature to advocate for the park and planning the county park and planning to control its own budget. So how do you all think about that? Because it seems like in essence she is trying to move to do something.
If she did that, I would think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question.
In working with youth in this county for a while, I cannot definitively say that if there's a program listed that it's easy for children to access.
Agreed.
But look at this rec center right now, how busy.
I know, it's closed.
Where
It's actually,
Yeah.
I mean, say, rec center actually today closes at 4. We just booked the space for that. So if kids wanted to be here and do something, it'd be like, I don't know, that fast for us to go.
how do you draw kids into the space? Like, I didn't grow up in this area, I grew up in another next door city that always promoted youth events over and over and over again, and had a very well-known mayor for a number of years that was like, nah, these kids need to come first during these summer months, during these times, and we're gonna make sure kids have productive things to do. One, so they can be viewed by adults, so you can know they're safe, they're coming from myriad of different backgrounds. But even when the day summer job is over, we're gonna have evening activities so that kids have safe spaces to come to. I've been a defender here, and we look a lot for things for our kids to do after school. And if they're not doing school-based activities or AAU-based activity or some other thing, very rarely do we say, oh, there's a program at their local recreation center on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock that they could go to. It's more so like this. DJX might have something, but they have to be monitored, but they have to already be a delinquent youth, you know.
So it goes to just like the criminalization of our youth as well. And then I was able to find the video of Councilor Oriana, so I also play that too. But I do want to go into some just ways that community can make their voice heard. One, if you scan the QR code, we'll also be sharing this out. We're asking people to not email your council member. Email County Executive also Brooks to urge her to veto the legislation. As well, when yes, we already talked about how the presumptive of how that's going to go, but we do want to make sure that there is constant pressure on her as well, because we can't just say, oh, just because the council supports this, that you can't do the right thing as well. And also, if you would like to get involved with the Prince George's County Police Accountability Coalition, please email them at pgcpac1@gmail.com as well. As you saw, we have amazing people in this coalition who are working hard every single day at this. So we just want to keep expanding it and keep growing out the coalition as well. Give me 1 second. I can pull up the video as well.
Oh. It's not getting signed. So that's
You know what? Cool. I can share this, but since the sound's not working with this, what I'm gonna do is share. I can share it out with you all's email as well.
That's
So you
fine.
have it.
Yep, that'll work.
Awesome. Again, thank you all so much. This has been amazing. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
I think it's important for people to hear, to know that some of us have been working on